Welcome to the 401 Jake Show. I'm glad you're here. This is going to be a great one. We're going to dive into TPAs and the top 3 things to look out for when you're choosing a good TPA, how to do it. Special guest Colton Hutchins. Can't wait. Before we jump into that, I got 2 quick things. First and foremost, make sure that you subscribe. I'm going to continue to bring content. I'm going to bring guests. I've found that more people listen when we have guests, so I'm going to double down on that. I'm finding that people want to hear different stories and different ideas, and they don't want to just hear me talk, so I'm going to bring on different guests. Number 2, the club session is still going. Every 3 weeks, we get together as a group on a Zoom meeting. I know you're sick of Zoom meetings. We'll figure something else out if you just can't handle it anymore. But this Friday is going to be content creation. Now, I know most of you are like, oh, compliance, they're going to stop me. I can't do it. We're going to talk about how you can get around that. We're going to talk about what content creation means and what that really can be, how you can make that work for you and your personal brand. Because a stronger personal brand, or another term for that is your reputation, will lead to more opportunities, no matter what your role is. If you're a wholesaler, if you're an advisor, if you're with a TPA firm, a record keeper, I don't care. You have a reputation that ties directly to you. And one way to get more eyeballs or more audience on you and what you can do to provide value for people is by creating content and posting that content, and how to do that and navigating the compliance, chains that you might be in. This is 2020. We are all at home. Content has to be your thing. So we're going to talk about that. All right, welcome to the show. Enjoy it. Colton brings some real fire, some ideas that can help you partner with some of the best TPAs out there. Let's go. All right, welcome everybody to the 401 Jake Show. I've got a special guest today. I am so excited about this because you know how much I love third-party administrators. TPAs make or break your practice. I really believe that. And so I'm constantly finding new people in this industry that are, I think, a little hidden in the administrative world. And I like to bring them out and highlight some of the things that they're doing and some of the ideas they have, because there's a lot of talent hidden in TPAs all over the country. And today we've got Colton Hutchins. He is I don't even know your title. I'll let you introduce yourself, but Colton is an all-star that I've met that is doing a lot of marketing, and you'll see him all over LinkedIn. So I'm sure you've seen his name pop up possibly. If you're in the 401k industry and you followed me, you're probably going to see Colton somewhere. So Colton, give us the rundown. Give us a little bit of a background, who you are, where you came from, your day-to-day, what you do, and then we'll dive into our topic today.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that introduction, Jake. Very glad to be here. Like he said, my name's Colton Hutchins. I work for the writing company based out of Southern California. My current title is New Business Coordinator and Social Media / Website Strategist. So that's kind of my secondary role. My primary role is New Business Coordinator. In that role, I do function to pretty much help any new clients that are onboarded from our sales team and give them a warm transfer to the administration team. So a lot of times just building relationships and continuing the service levels that people have first experienced when they enter our doors.
And a little follow-up to that. My question is, when there's a tough question, you're getting hit with a lot of different scenarios, right? As a TPA, yep. Like, you're the one that's going to get hit with, like, is this a control group? Is this affiliated? Like, there's a lot that comes up. How do you handle that? I know you've got a lot of experience in the industry, but not a ton, right? And so how do you handle when you come across new scenarios? What's kind of your process when that happens?
Yeah, so, it's not a surprise to come across unique experiences, especially when bringing on takeover plans. So fortunately, we've got a compliance department and director who I work very closely with, who's been in the industry for quite a bit longer than myself. She's been in there for almost 3 decades now, probably over 3 decades.
Oh, wow.
So, she's got a lot of experience, and it's hard to stump her. So while I might be stumped myself, I have a great resource internally that can shed a lot of light in answering clients' questions.
Nice. I think that role that you're in is definitely one that every single day you're going to learn something. I think that's pretty fun. I mean, it doesn't really get boring because you're going to get hit with something new every day.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Just
Sweet.
We thought you knew it all. You learned something new.
Yeah. I mean, I constantly have that same problem, but I turn to the TPA, right? Like, that's where I turn. So you, as being that person I'm turning to, that's a tough position to be in, I think, a lot of times, because we expect you to have the answer. And And it's really important that you have the support behind you, because no one has all the answers. I've found even the most experienced people can get stumped. So that's exciting that you're doing that. How did you end up there? I'm always fascinated by someone's path to get into the TPA world, because I don't think anyone decides, hey, I'm going to go work at a TPA. Like, that just doesn't happen. So how did you get there?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. As a matter of fact, I had my heart set on becoming an accountant. So when doors were closed for that, just found myself in a couple different opportunities, ironically with new business in each of those. So Pacific Life, so in life insurance, AIG, working on a variable annuity product, and then I actually applied for this job at the writing company because it was closer to my house. So
Nice.
was kind of sick of the commute, being in Southern California, anytime you can kind of cut that down is great. So now I don't even have to ride the freeway to get there. But, been here for about 3 years now, learning a lot and absolutely loving the company that I work for.
Awesome. So you did a little bit of annuity work in the past. What are your thoughts on annuities inside of a 401k? You weren't expecting that question, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
You weren't prepared for that one.
I think I can point to just kind of the way that the market has been over the last year. It presents some unique challenges. So we generally like to recommend not having annuities, especially for defined benefit plans. But we just inform our clients, inform our advisors of what we prefer. But it's ultimately up to them. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the same feeling. I don't like to just shut the door completely, even though I'm not a fan of annuities really at all. For very, very few scenarios will it actually make a lot of sense. And so
Yeah.
for the masses, it doesn't. And then I get the concept of, well, a target date kind of is misleading. There's a date you think you can retire, but you're not really have any guarantee. So I understand. So I'm not open-minded. So we'll see where it goes. I think that's interesting that you have that background. I'm sure that was a tough one too, because annuities, every single one is so different. I don't envy that position that you had.
Yeah, no, they're definitely challenging, complicated products, different for everybody, and certainly not the right option, but that's not to say we should eliminate it altogether. So just keep that door open just in case.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fascinating what we can come up with as an industry and the different products. And so I think it's good to continually explore what is happening and understand it. So when I see people bashing 401ks, I always pause and listen and try to understand what is the motivation that they're trying to do, because I don't look at the 401k as a product. I look at it as an account type. And so when someone is looking at it like a product and trying to hit it saying you shouldn't invest in a 401k, well, do they really understand what it is? And so I like to not cause contention in there, but I like to kind of have a discussion to figure out where's this coming from. So, because obviously I'm a huge fan of 401ks, but I will say 401ks are not the end all solution. You have to have more than a 401k usually to retire. So,
Yep.
Cool. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to 401ks and kind of the whole TPA relationship. The things we were going to talk about today were the top three, and you prepared for this, the top three things to look for when you pick a TPA. So I'm excited to hear about this from your perspective, because I've talked a lot about this. I've talked about how I've picked some of my partners, and it's always kind of changing. And I've been very new to meet the writing company. I've been very impressed with your team and the level of expertise you guys have and the processes. So I'm excited. So kick it off. What's the first of the three that you would look for when you pick a TPA?
Yeah, so when I was trying to think of the three things that I wanted to share, I wanted to kind of think outside the box a little bit, things that you wouldn't necessarily point to just right off the bat. So some of those would have been, how long we've been in the industry. Well, being in the industry since 1974 for us, there's a lot of changes that have taken place with that. So, longevity is not necessarily the best thing to pick. So I went slightly different route and was looking at how do we keep current. So the way to do that is my number one is looking for designations. So as you're familiar with, there are a couple different regulating bodies that put credentials together. So similar like financial advisors, where you have to have continuing education requirements. That's what these two bodies require. So when you see designations, you know that in order to keep them current, these people have to keep their information current, which is, important in this ever-changing space. So that's the number one reason.
So tell me which designations, because I don't think most advisors know what designations you have. I mean, we see all those letters after your name, right? I have an AIF, and I love that because I'm part of the community with FI 360, and there's continuing education, and it's kind of taught by our peers. But tell me more about yours, because you're QKA, right? And I don't even know
QKA.
what it stands
Yep.
for. That's how I know it's
Yeah,
qualified
no, great
something.
question. So QKA is the most basic, which is appropriate for somebody who's been in the industry for a couple years. So it's called a qualified 401k administrator.
Okay.
Um, that requires just a couple exams. They usually have 2 to 3 years of experience. Um, and it just goes on up based on the different tests. So you can see a QKC, which is brand new. And they kind of go qualified administrator, then consultant, administrator, consultant. So consultant is always the higher of the two levels. So be on the lookout for
Got it.
that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think that's important. I like that point because the ongoing effort to keep that, that up, all the continuing education is a real key piece to that. And
Yeah.
I've never had a client ask me, like, do you have this, or ever come up in an actual sales scenario,
Yep.
but it does keep things relevant. So I like that point. That's a great one.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so and then the number two, this one's also a little bit challenging to see and would come out in just conversing with sales reps or somebody else at the company like myself, and that is the investment in the people. And can be a little bit challenging to see as well, but in the TPA space, like the advisor space, we're looking to have long-term relationships with our clients. So when I think of investments into the employees and the people of that company, I'd like to see people who have been there a long time, people who have been growing with the company, and just people who love talking about it. So, I mean, hopefully you can tell in only 3 years from me, I love working for my company. I think they do a great job of that. So that would be number two, investment in their people.
Yeah, I agree with that. High turnover can lead to some tough conversations with your clients when
Yep.
you obviously I kind of pivot to the point where I want to be the hub, right? So there's a problem, I want the clients come to me and then I'll deal with the TPA, but there's certain things where there's going to be some interaction. If that's a different person every time, that's tough. So I like that point. Invest in your people, which in turn goes back to your number one. Your people should be continually educating themselves, and one thing they can do is help them get accreditations. And
Yep.
yeah, those are two great points.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, number three, what do you got?
Number three is, quite simply, do you like working with them? Long-term relationships, you gotta have people that you like to work with. You gotta have people that you trust, and that can look very different, even within each organization. So, for instance, some clients prefer email correspondence or phone correspondence. Others like to do most of their business through the advisor or the CPA. And I think it's important for us as TPAs to be adaptable to the different needs of our clients, and meet them where they're at and communicate in ways that matter to them. So that's really important. We're pretty intentional with the way that we bring on clients, starting with the sales team and then transferring to my department. And that's really where we get to think about who in our company would be a great fit for this particular client based on their experience, based on their needs. Because a lot of reasons when we get takeover plans, it's because something went wrong at the other company. And so usually clients are really willing to share that with us. And so we can make mental notes and then, make sure that we're addressing those concerns for them from the get-go.
I like that. That's a really good point. Looking at the long-term relationship, because what's fascinating about the TPA and the advisor role is you're both paid by the client, yet you have to support each other. And if there's not trust between those two parties, it's going to be a tough relationship. That's what I found. Like you have to
Yep.
support and not throw each other under the bus. I've seen that happen a lot of times. And sometimes the TPA will drop the ball. Probably advisors, we drop the ball quite a bit more, I would guess, just because most advisors are out selling. So when you actually get a plan, I think a lot of us get distracted by more opportunities. And so we rely heavily on the TPA to keep everything in order and kind of put a lot of trust that they're doing that. However, it's a team effort. It really has to be. So those are all three solid. I love them.
Yeah. I love what you said about, sometimes different groups drop the ball, but ultimately in the client's eyes, we are part of their team of trusted advisors. So, we love to have communication outside of the client with advisors and CPAs to get on that same page and then present a solid case for our clients together.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I kind of was thinking about this whole TPA relationship, and obviously there's a huge bonus when you as an advisor have a good TPA that's on your side, and depending on which niche you're in, if you're going deep into cash balance plans like I do, I'm very heavily involved with TPAs. Very few plans do I ever do bundled. But how does from a record keeper's perspective, I know there's a lot of wholesalers that listen in from the record keeping side, and they're kind of in this weird camp where sometimes they have bundle plans, sometimes they want to work with TPAs. And I see some of them partner up together. And there's been the new thing here in Utah where they have you stop by a pizza place and you take a pizza home to your family. I mean, they're trying to just like keep in touch. I mean, that hasn't happened since COVID hit, but that was pre-COVID. I'm curious your thoughts on how 401k record keeper wholesalers could bring more value to a TPA and vice versa. Like, how can we make that relationship stronger? How can they really, in the end, obviously the end result's to win more business, right? And there's all three of us have to work together, the record keeper, TPA, and advisor. How can we better make those connections? What advice do you have for wholesalers on the record keeping side?
Yeah, so similar to point number 3 about liking the people that you work with, it's really building relationships with a couple key contacts at the TPA. So like you mentioned, a lot of these record keepers are doing both bundled and unbundled. So they don't necessarily care if their plans are going between those two because they get to keep the business.
Yeah.
But from our standpoint, we've got our TPA sandbox. We want to play well with advisors and CPAs and record keepers. And so just keeping those channels of communication open, and especially letting us do what we do well, and that's plan compliance and testing. So deferring them to us as often as they can because that's our specialty.
Yeah, one thing I would love to see is if I could get together, and I actually have some of this with some of my partners I work with that I've known for my whole 401k career, last 6 years where I've only done 401ks, where they're so close in relationship that we're kind of texting each other, and like we almost have like this little group chat going all the time. When something pops up, we kind of all put our heads together, and the first thing we're thinking of is what's best for this client. And it never comes in as like selfishly someone's like, well, just I'll help you if you bring you here. Like those are the best partners, I feel like, where they have to be willing to give. And unfortunately, TPAs have to give quite a bit upfront for free a lot of times to win that business. And the more they do that, the more I think you guilt. It's a bad way to term it, but a bad way to look at it. But in a way, I feel as an advisor, like I got to get this plan to this TPA because I had them do all this work for me. And I'm very careful about that. Like, so how could we better get those conversations going? I mean, do you, as far as you're in sales and social media and those kind of connections with all the different parties involved, how do you approach that? Like, do you have a certain area and, these advisors are specialists, and then do you ever talk to other record keeper wholesalers about that same advisor? Does that ever come up?
We try to keep advisor contact or communication separate because we certainly don't want to because we our advisor partners and CPAs, those are the big referral sources for us. They're the first contact with the client. They have a lot of different opportunities for different record keepers because financial advisors, generally speaking, are located in a geographic area,
Yeah.
whereas record keepers and TPAs may not be. And so for that reason, we try to keep as open as possible to, not
Not
muddying
lean
the
one way or the
waters,
other.
if you will.
Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Because you kind of, I would say a lot of record keeper wholesalers, unfortunately, probably are just trying to get their deal done with them, right? So that a lot of
exactly.
times that's a different mentality that you have and the advisor or the CPA might have. I can see that. That's good feedback. I mean, honestly, that's why I wanted to get to the bottom of it, because I think there's a ton of wholesalers that they can't comment on LinkedIn. They can't do certain marketing. So they're trying to figure out with COVID, what can they do? And I think they need to take more of a TPA mindset where they got to just help. They got to get in and help. When they see a scenario that could help somebody, share it. Obviously, keep it private, whatever the
Yeah.
names are. But there's a lot of things that they see and learn that could help
Mhm.
advisors and TPAs all across the country if they would just share it. But they're
Yeah.
so locked down because they want that deal and they don't want anyone to, So I want to change that mentality. So
Yeah.
that's,
And
yeah, go
you
ahead.
make a great point, because with um, the sharing of that information, especially with what's important to clients, like they know the different TPAs are, that they kind of specialize in different plans, or like you mentioned, cash balance plans specifically. So what are those types of plan sponsors looking for? How can we increase our value to those clients? And just kind of share that information. So together, we're making a better end result for the client, whether they stick with us or go elsewhere.
Yeah. No, I like that. One other thing I know, because we have a couple more minutes, I want to, you probably saw, I posted just some results from an article I saw about who sold the most plans as a record keeper in 2019. And I just posted out there and threw the question out, why is payroll at the top? Like, I was just curious. Paychecks sold more than double what ADP sold.
Yeah.
And it started a big conversation, like more it was like a very viral post. I was really shocked. I think I'm like at 25,000 views and like tons of comments. And I didn't approach it negative. Like, I don't like to come at this like, well, payroll sucks. Like, why would you get your 401k from Paychecks? Like, I don't have that mindset, because I think there's certain scenarios where it could be a good thing. There's a
Mhm.
lot of great integration there. But I guess what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is, from a TPA's perspective, what are your thoughts on payroll integration? Because obviously that's a big part of your world, is getting that right, detailed information, data at the end of the year.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about that? Where do you think it's going? What could advisors do better to avoid issues that TPAs have to clean up at the end of the year?
Yeah, so payroll integration is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the quality of our work and the timeliness that we can turn around that quality work is heavily correlated to the quality of the data. And a lot of people who are providing us, whether they work in HR or business owners, that's not their specialty. So there's a lot lost in translation about what we need to really get the process started each year. And that is, almost completely avoided with payroll integration, because we can, as the TPA, get that information directly from the payroll provider, ask a couple questions, but it's severely cutting down, the back and forth that we experience on our end. So, I think it's great, ultimately thinking on the client's end about what makes the job easier for them. So I don't want to get rid of it altogether. I think that there's certainly a balance there.
Yeah.
And I'm
Do you
not
think
sure
it
where
goes,
that is
do you think it
just
goes
yet.
back to training, like training an actual business owner or an HR or payroll person? I think that's where there's a lot of lacking effort. Like, there's very little told to them what has to happen. It's kind of like, this is how you upload the file. This is the
Yep.
process. Not like,
Yeah.
what does the file really need to be, make sure that it happens? Because the problem is that file is changing every 2 weeks. Like, the business is changing. People are hired and
Yeah.
fired. And like, so how do we
Yeah.
fix that? Like, I don't know a good solution other than just more training.
Yeah, no, I think, that's kind of been our process. We realized that with business owners who've got a brand new plan, we've talked about kind of the state mandated retirement plans that are popping up around where um, business owners are getting used to providing that information, but it's all new. So we've gone into it with an open mind about, it's going to require some investment of time, probably a lot of time on the phone and a lot of patience. And that's something we never tell our clients. Stop asking questions. We want to develop that confidence in them where they are willing to ask even what seems like maybe a simple question or a question that maybe everybody asks. And those, we talked about the challenging questions, but we also like the easy ones as well, where we know the answer and we can be confident when we're providing those on the spot. So I think right now, education is certainly a great tool that we use to help our clients and certainly avoid more frustration, because it can get frustrating, just miscommunication or going back and forth and not understanding what we need. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of blaming. If there's not like a good foundation set from the start,
yeah,
there can be some fingers pointing like, well, you didn't tell me that. We hired you to do the 401k and you didn't tell me that by the employer, and it goes down the wrong hole, right? So I'm always I put a lot of attention on that, especially with a new client on a startup plan for, definitely put a lot of effort on that, because that's when the most problems happen. I mean, just that's where
yeah,
401ks go the wrong way. And
yep,
so having a good TPA that's willing to train and educate and help that person upload the right information from the very beginning is so valuable. Like that's true value. Like that's worth every penny.
yeah.
So that's I think something our industry has to do better. So advisors out there, listen up. You need to make sure that you spend some time on an education, whether you bring in the TPA to do it or something, but train that person that's uploading that file to know why they do it and what information is important, because it leads to so many headaches if you do it wrong. So,
Yep.
well, thanks for answering more and more questions. Sorry, I won't keep just firing away at you. I'm glad that you were able to spend some time today and chat about those
Yeah,
top
thank
three.
you.
Again, there's top three were number one, designations, number two, invest in the people, and then build long-term trust.
Yeah.
So I love it. Make sure that you have good partners. I've found that we have success working with national and local and having a variety of different options available. I don't know that I would ever go as far as say you have to have just one TPA and just stick with one. I know most TPAs would want me to say that, but not every TPA is a good fit for every client. So know your niche, know who you're helping.
Mhm.
Too many advisors cast that net out. So I want to help anybody with a business. Like that's going to lead to some struggles because every business is so different. So niche down and find the TPAs that fit your niche, and then be more of the physician role where you're like, hey, this is the best fit. I recommend them. And then go with it. Keep that trust and work through struggles. So anything else you want to add, Colton? Any
No, I
final
think
thoughts?
that that pretty much covers it. I mean, like you said, not every TPA is the right fit for every client, and we know that. But just trying to figure out, doing our due diligence, both with advisors and clients, to really make sure that we're going to have a successful relationship with them long term.
I love it. I love it. And for those people that are just starting out on their TPA path, maybe they're just at the bottom of the ladder, they're taking the phone calls and they're just learning everything. What would you tell them that if they're just entering this industry and they don't see where they're going to take it and they're maybe frustrated or like, can I stick with this long term? What would you say to yourself if that was you in that position?
I'd say embrace the aha moments. Our industry is cyclical. It takes a while before you really feel like you've settled in. I know my first year, everything was just learning through a fire hose, and then the second year I felt more confident. I kind of felt like I knew what to expect and timing wise and that sort of thing. And then here I am, just after my third year, and really feeling like I've got a solid overall picture. And so I'm looking to drill down deep But that's what I'd say, keep with it, embrace those aha moments. And with time and persistence, you'll get there.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, confidence, it just starts to build. And the
Yep.
more you do it, and then it gets really exciting because now you know the answer.
Yeah.
You're still going to
Yeah.
get stumped, but you know a lot more of the answers that you didn't know before. So
Exactly.
that's a great words of advice. I love it. So thanks for taking
Yeah.
the time, Colton. I
Yeah, of
appreciate it.
course.
Again, if people have questions, I want to contact Colton. He's all over LinkedIn, so I would reach out probably that way. And ask your questions. I think he's a great, I mean, you have clients like all over the country, right? As far as like
Yeah.
40 plus
Yeah.
states.
Just
You guys are spread
just
out.
realized that this year actually. Didn't realize how many country or how many states, excuse me. We had like over 40, 41, I think it is. So got a few not represented, but we're working to expand there as well.
That's great. Yeah. So wherever you are, you might be able to connect in with the writing company. If not, I'm sure that they would know another TPA that it would be in your area. But I've been impressed. Even they're not the largest TPA, but their size definitely has depth of experience. So appreciate you taking the time today, Colton. I look forward to continuing to get to know you better and to get on some plans and start working towards just helping clients. And for you advisors and wholesalers out there, get after it. Like, find the right TPA partners and build trust, stick with it, and don't bounce around. And you'll find that you'll create some really good results for your end clients, which is what we're all trying to do. All right.
Yep.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all.